Hey everybody, and welcome back to another Full Queue Developer stream, where we talk about an open source authentication server that I've been working on off stream. Today I wanted to talk about the signup flow of the server um, on the server side. But first, of course, the URL for this project is github.com/fullqueuedeveloper/fqauth, and you can read about the goals of the project. The intention for it is to be a microservice that you can deploy either to your own cluster or to something like Heroku. It's supposed to be standalone and will issue auth tokens for your other server pieces or your iPhone or Android app. Last time we talked about managing our local databases using a command from the command line to easily create and destroy our Postgres databases. And today I wanted to talk about the signup flow on the server side. So here's the entire flow as it currently stands. iPhone, the server, the Postgres database, and of course Apple. And there's stuff that happens before this point, and we'll get to that maybe in another episode. But for this episode, I want to talk about creating the user and creating the refresh token. Oh, the refresh token's also not this episode. I guess what happens when we create a user is we want to create also. Oh, I need a schema diagram, huh? And I don't have that right now. This is just a flow diagram. So when we create a user on signup, we want to create the user, and we want to create a row in the table in our signing with Apple table. So we have a controller for signup, of course, and it leverages this structure here, the sign in with Apple signup repo, to create the rows in the database. Now, of course, this only does signing with Apple right now, but I wanted to support multiple methods. So that's sort of the first note that we see here. So the enumeration of the different cases. And to sign in with Apple, we need the Apple user ID and the Apple refresh token so we can verify that the account is still active. And of course, we'll receive the user's email and first name and last name. Now, Apple gives a NS person name components, I believe is the name of the model. But it seems that you only get first name and last name in there. And please correct me if I'm wrong there. And I also wanted to use the device name that the user is signing up from. I wanted to show later to the user what device they signed up on, so they can know where they're signed in and recognize different sign-ins. Yeah, so these are the params that are used. And we can create this based on an application or a request, which just copies over the event loop, the logger, and of course, a reference to the database. And then the main method here is sign up, giving these params, which returns back the user ID. So this is kind of the main bit of the sign up here. And again, we're switching on the method that they're signing up with because I am hoping to support sign in with Google later, and maybe sign in with some other services later. So yeah, this might be a premature optimization, but that's the intention. So I guess what jumps out the most to me is this big string right here, which is the SQL template for creating the user. Now, as I mentioned earlier, we want to save stuff into the user table and into the sign in with Apple table. You see that's what's happening here. We have an insert into user. We have an insert into SIWA, the sign in with Apple, I guess. And for the user, we have their first name, last name, and registration method. And the registration method is a Postgres enumeration called user registration method. And perhaps I should show the migration for that, because I think that would clarify some things. So let's see, let's look at user migration. This is in the, this is, Xcode did not open the right file at all. Let's see, where is our migrations? I guess we have this folder of migrations, create user. Yeah, so we have a user registration type as enum. And this is one case, just sign in with Apple for now. We haven't gotten to the other ones yet. And we're also using an enum for the type of user. You'll see there's a bunch of defaults here. We have created at and updated at. Those have defaults. User status, we default it to active. If you just signed up, you're active. First name and last name, they seem to be able to be null. So we're just gonna keep it that way. Let the app decide what to show. It's null. And then we have the ID is going to be a UUID that we're gonna let Postgres generate for us. That's what this is right here. Yeah, so when we insert into user, we only need to say the first name, last name, and registration method. Everything else comes as a default. And because we're using this with statement, which is a common table expression or CTE, we can return the ID as user ID. So then we have this virtual table, I guess is one way to think about it, where later when we insert into the signing with Apple table, we can select the user ID from new user. We can get that ID and insert that into signing with Apple table, and the IDs will be correlated. So that's the last column here, the user ID. We're also going to save the email because that's associated with the signing with Apple. It's not necessarily on the user. The Apple user ID, I think these are guaranteed to be unique to you and your app for that user. So if they keep signing in, they're going to keep getting that user ID. And then the Apple refresh token, we want to encrypt it. We don't want to just store it plain in our database. And that's going to come in, we're going to encrypt it using application code and store it in the database that way. You can see right here. Yeah, I guess I'm using like numbered params here, which isn't as easy to read. You can see that this lines up here. The encrypted Apple refresh token is we seal it. And so this creates I guess we can just take a look at that class. We use I don't know how to pronounce this, the cha-cha poly seal, and use it a nonce. So every time you do this, it's not going to be the same. And that's, of course, makes it more secure. But it comes out as a string. I wonder if this should be a data. but we do have a symmetric key. And I believe that comes from, yeah, that comes from an environment variable. And if it's not there, we just fatal. Envars is a little helper to load environment variables. Also shows how you can generate some of these. So for the symmetric key, I wrote a little bit of a helper. Just say swish generate DB key, and it'll create a database key you can upload to your server or use locally. Yeah, so going back to the database seal. Is there anything else interesting in this? I mean, I guess we show how to unseal it. How do we get it out of the database? It's just these stuff from crypto. It's built in from Apple. Okay, so we have the first name, the last name, the method they're using to sign up with, the email, and the user ID. So these are all put into two different rows. Two different rows and two different tables. We create an SQL raw, which is a vapor type. And we go ahead and we execute it. And you'll see that this last part here, returning user ID as user ID, that's what we return back from this statement. And we can decode that as a UUID. And maybe insert isn't the right name here. This no, it is. Yeah, because this is a reference to the event loop future of the execute statement, whereas the user ID result is the actual result that came back out, which we switch on after after we've completed this event loop. So if we succeeded to create the user, we say we succeeded and return back the user ID. Otherwise, we failed. And so we fail the event loop with the error that happened, and the result captures either the error or the success. So I guess that's an example of converting from event loops to results back to event loops. Yeah, because this can throw, that made it a little bit difficult to get it exactly how I would have wanted to otherwise. I wonder if there's some massaging we can do there to make it more readable. I don't think this is too bad, but I think it could be better, because we have this none part here, like if nothing happened. And yeah, that's that's a little unfortunate. So yeah, let's see if we can clean this up just a little bit. We might not be able to. So let's see. I think I would want to see. Let's start with this. Let's pull this out, and then can we flat map throwing? Oh, so that just, this doesn't return something back necessarily. It's giving us a void here, not a row. That's interesting. So this one gets a, oh, it is a row. It's just the autocomplete got confused. Okay, so if this is row, oh, Oh, right. Yeah, because of the internals of execute. Yeah, it's just a completion block. It's not an event loop future. Okay, so yeah, so this was a workaround to get around how they implemented execute. Yeah, we have it calls an on row, and then we get an event loop callback or completion when it's all done calling all of these. Okay, so that's why I did it in this way. It would be nice to have this kind of as I was expecting. I was expecting this to be something we could, dot map on and just keep the chain flowing. But that's not how they implemented this execute. Yeah, it would be nice because I guess they can't guarantee that it's only one row. They're calling a callback for each row, so yeah, that makes sense. What's the change here? White space? Okay, whatever. Yeah, so that's sign up, creating the two rows in the database. One for the user, one for the sign in with Apple, and the workaround for their execute. So that's a little preview of or explanation of how this file works. Now let's take a look at the tests. So I have one test so far. And we can run it and show that it's working. I ran this just before the stream started, so I hope it's still working. Build succeeded. That's a great start. Oh, we got a failure. Wonderful. Connection refused. Yeah, as I said, this worked. This worked just before I started the stream. Oh, I think it's because I restarted my computer and I have to restart Postgres, I guess. Postgres didn't start up again, my local Postgres. That's my guess. I think it's going to fail from the command line also for the same reason. And how do I, yeah, same reason. So is it like brew services? How do we start up Postgres again? Can I list them? List a, it is. Brew services start. Let's try this. Successfully started. And now if I run the tests again, we'll have some failures. Oh, we're getting connection refused. Okay, so that's great. Oh, maybe it just didn't finish starting up yet. Let's give it one more try after waiting a hot minute. Nope, same error. Okay, we'll come back to that another time. It did pass before the stream started. Cool, so let's talk through what we're doing here. So for starters, this is not a request test. Like I said, this is just that one part of the flow right here, creating the user. It's none of this other request stuff. But I am still creating the whole application, just it makes it easier to make sure everything is set up. And then we reset the database here with an auto revert and an auto migrate. And because we're basically single threaded right now, it's okay to call .wait here. And Xcode now has this set up with error. It didn't have this when I was growing up, but it does now. So we can just go ahead and leave these tries unhandled and just say throws here. Then you can see that this is kind of a long statement to get the database, a connection to the database. So I kind of made a little bit of a helper to get it out of the app. Then I create a sign up repo. It's actually a struct, right? I was about to call it a class. Yeah, it's just a struct. We create one of these using just the logger from the app, the logger from the event loop, and the database. In our actual code, we would be initializing it from a request to make sure we're on the same event loop as the request. Then we call repo.signup with some examples. Tomato@example.com. Example.com, of course, this will never be a real website, so it's fantastic for examples. And we have the method with a fake Apple user ID and a fake Apple refresh token. They're just there to show that something's coming through, because we're only testing at the sign up part. Then after we sign up, we want to ensure that the right stuff got created in the database. We can assert that the first name matches, that the last name matches, that the registration method was signing with Apple, and that the user is active. This is all stuff that we saw from that we're setting here. And then this is kind of a mouthful, just asserting that the created at and updated at are within, is this 3 milliseconds or 3 seconds? Just to make sure that they're close enough. I don't want to say exactly right now because that's always going to fail, because it's going to be like a few microseconds later at a minimum. Then we can assert that the signing with Apple, that the email got created there. Same thing with the created at and updated at. And I wonder if we should make a little bit of a helper for asserting that dates match. Let's see. Because that is a mouthful, and it would be nice if we could clean that up a little bit. Let's call it A and D, I guess. I'm going to command click into it so that I can get this little bit here, the line and file. We want to pass these along. And then here we can copy paste in. This is going to be A, B, and then we can refactor this. We can say assert dates close. See, that looks way better. And actually, we could probably say assert date is nowish. Because that's all it is. We're creating a date that means now. And if we say now in the assert, that might feel a little better. And yeah, something's wrong with my database right now, so I can't show you that this is passing again. refuse the connection. Even though it is up and running. Yeah, I mean, we started it. Oh, it had an error starting. Okay. Yeah, so I'm not going to debug this live on stream. We'll figure this out later. But yeah, here's the assertions that we created to show that all the rows were set up correctly by our signup repo. So yeah, that's about what I wanted to show off today. Again, this is all open source. This is all at on my GitHub at fullqueuedeveloper.com/fqauth. And it's on the initial branch. See, all the stuff is in here. If you want to take a look or contribute, thanks, reader mode. Yeah, and you can follow me on Twitter at twitter.com/fqauth, or you can join my Discord. fullqueuedeveloper.com/discord will be the link to get you there. And yeah, I think maybe next time we'll talk about do a short intro to Vapor before we get too far down the road of explaining all the parts of the signing with Apple. And of course, thank you to our GitHub sponsors. Luxleaf's been sponsoring me for a while, and thank you to all the Twitch subscribers. Thank you so much for supporting my work and making all this possible. I appreciate it more than I can ever put into words. Have a great evening, morning, or night, wherever you are, and I'll see you next time.